Hello, good afternoon. We are going to speak in English because we have one of our guest speakers, so we think better to do this in English. First of all, I want to thank the organization, Ricardo and all the people that helped the situation. And we are going to speak about architecture and about urban planning, about another kind of narrative. We have been speaking about poetry, about other situations. Now we speak about architecture and urban planning. We will speak also about Macau. So our idea is to contextualize the city and to think about architecture as a new grammar for life. Cities are the places where we live, the spaces that we create, the atmospheres that we enjoy, sacred and not sacred. Cities are the places where we stay, pray, love, and hate. Cities are also about us and what we learn from the others. We have 3 speakers, each one with a different vision of the cities and about how inspiring they can be. The cities, the buildings, the voids, the spaces created, and people. Let's listen to them. So first, I will introduce Alexandre Marreiros, here on my left side. Alexandre was born in Cascais, Portugal, 1984. He studied arts in high school and graduated from Lisbon Lusíada University in architecture and arts. In 2012, studied the urban and architectural configuration of Morocco, main Medinas, and presented a master thesis in architecture titled Labyrinths of Luxabona, Alfama, and the influence of Islamic architecture. He lived in Rio de Janeiro, where he developed his artistic work and research on slums as an architectural phenomenon. Lives and works in Macau. So, Alexandre, please, you can start your presentation.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Marisa, for inviting me for this. Well, when you invited me, the first thing I thought, I mean, this is a literature festival, and this is everything, it's around stories, right? I believe as an architect, and I was also a guy that really likes cities and architecture, that architecture is a storyteller. Even if it's bad, if it's not bad, if it's good architecture, the cities and the buildings tell us stories, and has just that very, very big potential. So what I'm gonna show you during the next 20 minutes, I suppose, it's something that I call, let me see if we can get that there. Okay, so I was supposed to speak in Portuguese, but let's do this in English, and it's something like, okay, this is the architecture as story matter. In Portuguese, a arquitetura como matéria para histórias. I will start to make this relation between architecture and cinema. It was since my student times. We used to have a great architect, was Manuel Tainha. A lot of people that is linked or not should know this very important character for the Portuguese context. Manuel Tainha, normally all the classes were only playing movies. And this makes sense as I'm growing as an architect, and because I think it's the best representation of architecture. So what I'm showing next is, it's something that I believe that architecture is a starting point to tell stories, and I think this Jacques Tati, with all his works, tell us a lot. I mean, nothing of those movies could be that without being supported by architecture. I think this image is quite interesting because it's showing Jacques Tati with the sketch he did, and also the sketch give the cover of the movie. It calls Playtime. It's from '67, and this movie, it's about the modern life, and It's the way that the cities were driving us into this kind of automatic. Everybody's it's doing the same stories, moving in the same way in the space in the city, and it starts in Paris with this group of tourists that are going for the first time to Paris. What I see from Jacques Tati's side is all the cities or the modern cities are very similar. This could be in Chicago, New York, what we call the international style. So on your right side, we can see everybody getting into this new fancy car, wearing the same clothes, a lot of glass, which is something from the 50s, the 60s. We start to use a lot of glass claddings and the curtain walls and so on. Here, I think it's again the way that architecture, it's very important on this movie is, for example, there's a little detail of a lady open a door and suddenly something that could be in Chicago revealed to be in Paris. And this just with a simple detail and a simple open the door and the glass reveals we are in Paris. And this is, he doesn't need to say this is in Paris. This is the architecture telling us this is in Paris. On this next slide, on the first one on the right, we can see that probably inside that house they are living room, maybe chatting and so on. On the next one, when Jacques Tati changed the angle and moves the camera, we can see that after all, everybody was looking to a TV and separated by a partition wall. So I think this kind of a tricky way that Jacques Tati tells us stories, it's always based on architecture and space. Here I think it's another funny moment. I will not get too long on this, otherwise I will not be able to finish my slides. But there's a very interesting one, I think it's the upper one, where on this modern city, a lady is trying to sell a trash bin, which is a Greek column. And it's kind of a metaphoric way to say, okay, hell with the past, now we're going to leave the modern, and something that we are using for centuries, which is the column, the structure. As civilizations are using a lot of the columns, suddenly it gets a trash bin. So I think it's another way to build metaphoric ways to tell us something that we want to. Anyway, let's. I want to play just a little bit of this trailer. I think it's quite funny. Okay, so this is the trailer of the playtime. I think it's an amazing piece of. So the next one is also Jacques Tati, Mon Oncle. I think it's. I also like this quote. I want the film to start when you leave the auditorium. I feel the same as the architecture. I mean, we want to make life in architecture, which is this is the real movies, the real architecture, the real art. It's living, it's celebrating life. this is for the ones that know this film. It's a story between an uncle and a nephew. This is divided between the countryside where Jacques Tati, or mon oncle, lives, and so it's he's representing a lot of our nature, which call us a lot of times in certain times of our life to the countryside, to think it's more simple, to step out of the city, and then this is another. I think these images illustrate quite well the relationship that the movie has with the cinema has with the architecture. In one way, that modern building, and this is a '57 movie, so it's really actual. It shows two windows in the nighttime. It shows two eyes looking through that strange guy that is the uncle from the countryside. So I think all these kind of tricky ways to tell stories with the architecture and of course with the characters and the relationship with their bodies within the space is quite particular in Jacques Tati movies. Well, this is okay. Maybe I can show. Do we have time to? Is it 1 minute? No. Okay, so let's skip the trailer. If you guys, if you ladies and gentlemen want to see, yeah, maybe. Okay. The Le Mépris, Jean-Luc Godard. Sorry, my French. It's I choose this one because it's mainly for me with beautiful Brigitte Bardot. It's on Casa Malaparte. Malaparte is a very known, very from the 40s, I suppose, house designed by Adalberto Libera for the writer, and again, there's a literature there, Malaparte. I think, let me skip this. The main saying of this house is this stairs, and it's being represented on the movie, and it's very strong. This I think it's very cinematographic, but anyway, let me skip this. Otherwise, this it's what I want to get. Our memories, our stories are very based in our memory. On the left side we have Malaparte. On the hometown, very close, very small villa in Italy, where he used to write that. When he was a child, he up and go down, and those stairs that take them to the church. So after a lot of years, he builds a house, or he ordered a house, exactly with the same child experience and memories. So again, I think architecture is very important for building our stories and our memories. So very quickly, now I'm going to jump to architecture as a starting point for art. The first, this artist is Gordon Matta-Clark. I found this really, I think it's a really cool image. The first restaurant he bought in New York called Comidas Crioulas. This picture was took just after he bought this. So I suppose that some Portuguese immigrants. Anyway, I think it's interesting. Gordon Matta-Clark used buildings in the time that New York and United States were demolishing a lot of buildings to build and to rise skyscrapers. So again, the space in the city and the architecture is support to be part of some story, and in this case is art. More works from Gordon Matta-Clark. He cut and he calls this building cuts. Some part of the building cuts he grabbed them and he shows in the museum. The next one is the British Rachel Whitred, which has this particular project. She bought a small Victorian house, which was being targeted to be developed to build massive housings, and she did this. She works a lot with the negative of the spaces. So again, I think architecture is a starting point for doing a lot of. This is to finalize this. This is a work that I did in 2013, and suddenly when I went to Brazil to study all my big masters in architecture, like Oscarinha Mayer and Paulo Mendes da Rocha and Lúcio Costa. I mean, so many of them. There was something that behind those buildings catch my attention. It was the favela. So I think, again, architecture has the power, or has the, not the power, I will not call power, but has the capacity of bringing to us not only a support of life, but starting points for everything. For a first kiss, who doesn't remember when you get the first kiss, or getting the first, I don't know. I mean, there's always the architecture, there's always the space related to our memories, and they can be always starting points for stories. So this is, all those pictures are mine. I work on ConTEXTualizando for a couple of months, teaching children how to photography, and then end up with the work in the museum, in Macau Art Museum, which was, I call this Cnidoschcolos Quercifolios, which is the Latin name for favela. This is a couple of works I show there in 2016. And yeah, and that's it. Yeah, thank you.
So after the presentation of Alexandre, now we will have José Luís de Sales Marques. José Luís de Sales Marques is president of the Institute of European Studies in Macau since January 1st, 2002. Previously, he was mayor of Macau during 1993 until 2001. He is founder of ACE, Architecture, Culture and Environment, with Carlos Marreiros and Marco Imperadori. He has published in scientific journal as well, a general media, on urban identity, culture and economy. He is currently writing a series of 11 articles for Revista Macau on cities of the Greater Bay Area, gives occasional lectures on those subjects at seminars and post-graduation programs on urbanism. So, José Luís, the floor is yours. Tell us something about the Greater Bay Area and your experience of as mayor of Macau City. Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Maria, for inviting me to be part of this panel. I appreciate a lot the work of Alexandre Marreiros as well as the Peters. Actually, he is one of the hidden treasures in Macau, because if you listen to him, you will understand why I am saying that. I learn a lot from him, and so it is a great honor for me to share the floor with both of you. First of all, let me just say that, and of course, not last but not least, thank you and very much Ricardo and everyone that is involved with Rota das Letras, and congratulations. I said yesterday in my contrapunto contribution that this is a brilliant edition of the Rota das Letras, and I want to say it first time to you as well. And so congratulations and thank you very much for putting this together. Thank you. I am a practitioner. I don't have any formal education in architecture or urbanism. I'm an economist, the most boring and dangerous profession in the world, because in 99% you will get wrong. So, so I spend my time in a more creative and interesting way, which is looking at other things where I do not have so much responsibility. So I can say whatever I want. Eventually, no one is going to get out with that. So I have started my connection, of course, with Macau. I am a Macau-born person, so I love Macau, and I know about Macau quite well, particularly because for 8.5 years I was the person that had the #1 responsibility in managing the city. So during a very challenging time of the transition of the Macau, let's say the handover period from 1993 to 1999, and then the 2 first years of the Macau SAR from 1999 to 2001. So I feel very blessed by the fact that I was able to be part of Macau history. And after that, I had some time. I have this job, which is a marvelous one. It's not because I don't have any public pressure, and I can do a lot of things that I like. And so I start to, among other things, to try to understand how the city functions in a more, let's say, scientific and knowledgeable way. And so I started dedicating myself also to studying and researching on urbanism architecture, as well as the things that has to do with the city, particularly with this very interesting and important subject, which is called identity. Well, nowadays it's difficult for us actually to see, how to approach the issue of identity. When I started, I thought, well, let's start to talk about urban identity. But then I came to realize that, well, urban identity the subject is really too vast. Maybe I should try to talk about place identity, which is something more, narrow in a way. And of course, I think you can go down even to the community or to neighborhood identity. I think actually neighborhood is maybe the unit that is really the most important one. If you want to analyze and to work on the city and urban issues, the neighborhood is a very, very important unit. But of course, you need to have a holistic view of the place where you are. And of course, you have to understand also the dynamics of the city in a much wider context. And recently, well, let's say maybe 1 or 1.5 years ago, we start having a new challenge in terms of how to look at the city, how to look at Macau, and how to analyze the developments and the future of Macau. And that new thing is called the Greater Bay Area. So the Greater Bay Area is something that is a creation, of course, from the central government as well as the local, let's say, the regional governments, the Guangdong provincial government, the Macau SAR government, as well as the Hong Kong SAR government. And at the beginning, it could be seen as one more top-down decision-making, something that has some objective, of course, political objective. But if you look at it, it actually is there's a historical process of the Greater Bay Area. The Greater Bay Area and the Pearl River Delta, which is the name which was initially known until very recently as the Greater Bay Area, as the Greater Pearl River Delta, is one region in the Guangdong province that has been integrating itself through market forces, through the market dynamics since the opening up of mainland China, particularly 1978 onwards. Because we know that Macau and Hong Kong has played a very important role in the opening up of mainland China, as well as the internationalization of this area. So recently, I was asked to give a lecture about the Greater Bay Area at the Bartlett School of Architecture in London. And what I'm going to present to you is that PowerPoint. I'm sorry I didn't prepare one just specifically for this event because I was giving notice very short while ago. But I hope that you would like to share that with me, and maybe we can learn something or we can exchange some views about it. So, in regard to this. In regard to this topic, which is the mobility in the Greater Bay Area, connecting places, people, and political systems. Well, maybe I won't have time to say everything about the slide, but I would like to start exactly with the 3 items that I put over there: connecting places, people, and political systems. Because we can say a lot about Greater Bay Area. I could give you statistics. I could eventually make comments about the cities. But the fact is, this is a very interesting and unique experience. Of course, as I'm a student of European integration, I have a particular interest also as well from the scientific viewpoint to learn something about a process that has some similarities with the process of European integration or any regional integration, because this is a process of regional integration with Chinese characteristics. So in regard to this Greater Bay Area, then the first one, o primeiro, yeah, sorry. Okay, so the Greater Bay Area connects what? Connects 9 cities. 9 cities from the Guangdong province, so under the first system, with 2 special administrative regions of Macau and Hong Kong. Of course, we could say in general terms they are the second system, but they are also different from each other. They have a different history, they have the historical background, and even the basic law is different, and their practice as a special administrative region is also very different. So this is, number one, a kind of a challenge, of course. The second one is that they are different customs territory. Macau and Hong Kong are founding members of the World Trade Organization, but China has been only part of the World Trade Organization since 2001, and China is not considered to be, or not recognized as a market economy. So that is the second challenge. So we have 3 customs territory, and then of course we have a set of laws which are different. Macau law has a Portuguese background. Hong Kong law is a common law, and China is mainly continental law with some particular also features. And then we have 3 different currencies, so on, so many things that we do have different. However, there's something that is similar as well. And I think, first of all, I want to talk about this, which I found very, very important. It's about culture. It's the so-called Lingnam culture, okay? Lingnam culture is a culture that belongs to this part of China. It's a culture that comes from the mix of Yue culture with Han culture. And of course, we have the Cantonese language. We have so many features of our culture that reflects in so many different manifestations, from food to Cantonese opera, to dragon boat races, to kung fu, to so many other things, which makes us actually come together. We understand each other in a way because we belong. I realized recently when I visited a park in near Guangdong, near Guangzhou, that is dedicated to Lingnam culture, that everything that I knew from when I was just a small kid, from Tongyun to some other things that we have, you know, we see so in the streets of Macau, they all belong to Lingnam culture. So I grew up with the Lingnam culture as well, okay? So this is a very important thing. And it's very interesting that the central government has decided that part of the Greater Bay Area plan that was released recently is dedicated also to the fostering and the deepening maybe of a knowledge about Lingnam culture. I think this is something that is quite interesting and important. Then we have, of course, several mechanisms of coordination, but what I want to show you in this couple of slides, and well, I still have some time, is that, of course, in the future, this Greater Bay Area is going to be a huge metropolis. Over 70 million people, very big GDP, per capita GDP that overall is the highest in China. And some of the, of course, some of the cities, they have per capita GDPs that are comparable to European cities. Even in mainland China, something that is very interesting, maybe it's not common knowledge, but for instance, cities like Guangzhou, Shenzhen. Shenzhen has 27,000 euros or 27,000 US dollars per capita GDP, which is higher than some member states, the per capita GDP of some member states of the European Union. So this is really a quite developed region of China as well as the world. So this is, I think, important information that we should take into consideration. Not to mention Macau and Hong Kong, of course. So I'm going to skip the figures and so on. Well, I'm sure that you know this map very well, and the location of the cities that belong to the Greater Bay Area. I'm going to skip this because this is maybe too technical, but for instance, that one is important. The economic profiles of the 11 cities of the Greater Bay Area. Each one of them, they are somehow different. There are some similarities, but overall, they complement each other. They complement each other. And of course, the four main cities of the Greater Bay Area are Macau, Hong Kong, Shenzhen, and Guangzhou. So these are, let's say, the tier 1 cities of the Greater Bay Area. And it means also that from the Macau viewpoint, it brings us or gives us extra responsibility in a way. So I think that it's important for Macau to look at this process in a way that we are not going to be left out of it. We need to do the utmost that we can to take care, to take this opportunity and to move forward. This is the population density of the Greater Bay Area, and of course you can see that Macau is the city that has a higher population density. Well, the infrastructure, the connectivity in the Greater Bay Area, the principle that is going to be in the future, and the Greater Bay Area has the plan itself has two moments. One is 2022, and the other one is 2035. And so the idea is that by the end of this process, that each city of the Greater Bay Area is going to be connected with the other city in a 1 hour ride only. So you can go to Guangdong, to Guangzhou, you can go to Huichao, you can go to some other cities in the Greater Bay Area. If you take maybe the high-speed train, or you take the kind of MTR or something like that you will be able to get to that city, to commute within 1 hour. So this is one of the important points about the connectivity of the Greater Bay Area. Well, some of the iconic features or projects that we have, of course, the bridge is one of them. The Hong Kong fast train to Guangzhou is another one. So there will be new bridges. It's a new bridge, for instance, the new bridge linking Dongguan to Punyu or to Guangzhou actually. That new bridge is going to come up probably this year, is almost finished. So that bridge will diminish the traveling time between Dongguan and Guangzhou in 45 minutes. So it's quite a new development. We have, of course, Greater Bay Area is a very open area. It's an area that depends a lot and is on foreign direct investment. It's also an area that has a lot of potential to attract foreign direct investment, particularly through Hong Kong, of course. And you can see the distribution of foreign direct investment in that slide, where Hong Kong comes, of course, in a very, very prominent position. There is more information here about the different ports and the maritime infrastructure and so on. And in regard to Macau, of course, which are the specific roles attributed to Macau in the Greater Bay Area Plan? So there are three mainly, okay? And I will be finishing with this last slide. So the first one, of course, we all know, is to be the platform between China and the Portuguese-speaking countries. So this is the first one. The second one is also not very difficult to guess, is to be one of the world centers for tourism and leisure. And I'm sure that will connect probably what you are going to say. And the third one, and I think that one needs to be further developed, needs to be understood. And I think Rota das Letras is very well placed within this concept that I'm going to say, which is Macau is the base for the cultural interchange between Chinese culture and other cultures. So this is the place within the Greater Bay Area for dialogue. It's a place for cultural or intercultural dialogue. It's a place for intercultural exchanges. So this is something that I think that all of us in Macau, we should be very aware, and we should make, use of that opportunity in a very creative and dynamic way. I think this is very important for Macau. And having said that, I thank you once again for having me here, and thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Dr. Salzmark. So now let's go for our last guest speaker, okay. Professor Peter Zabielskis. Received his PhD from New York University and is Associate Professor of Anthropology at the University of Macau.
Screen here.
His research interest includes material culture, art, architecture, religion, heritage, and public urban space. Recent articles include Towards a Moral Ecology of the City, a new form of place-based identity and social action in Penang, Malaysia. Another one, Face and Property, Pressures of Development and Change on the Quan Thai Tin Hau Temple in Cheo Kat Chun, Taipa, Macau, in the book The Formation of a Global City. So, Professor, thanks for coming, for being here with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you to everyone who has helped organize this very exciting event for Macau. I'm very, very happy to be here, and I hope everybody has really gotten great things out of it. I know they have. I've lived in Macau for 12 years. I love Macau, but there are some problems. Every summer I go back to New York, and when I go out of the doors of the airport, at the airport, the air seems so much fresher and cleaner than in Macau. But okay, let me tell you about why I like Macau and love Macau, and why I have some critical things about it also. Can we get it bigger? Okay. Okay, so when I was preparing this, I asked myself, why do I love cities? I love Macau, I love almost every city, and I love them because they are infinite. A city is a bit of infinity. So I'm calling this talk, Macau, a Small Infinity. Most of our experience of infinity is of something natural. The sun, moon, stars, sky, the sea. But cities are truly human-made infinities. Cities are our doing. That means we can do something different if there's something that's not quite right. Natural structures often make us feel insignificant, or they remind us of our smallness, our inadequacy. Urban structures, including architecture and urban space, can make us feel and remind us of a different set of things. None of them are small. Every city commands us to engage with power, potential, history, possibility, imagination, and the future. That is why we live in cities. That is why we come to cities. It is a human-created infinity. Now, is this the reason for why urban rents are so high? I live in a rent-controlled, in the summer in New York, I live in a rent-controlled apartment in Lower Manhattan that I've had for 35 years. Years ago, a friend was looking for an apartment, and the agent brought us to an apartment that was on the top floor of a walk-up, very expensive, and it had access to the roof. And she told my friend, oh, imagine yourself walking up the stairs with a tray of cocktails and you're having a fabulous party on this roof. And the rent was astronomical. But that's sort of the thing that cities are all about, imagining for yourself a fabulous future. Every city is infinite, not in terms of physical space, not in terms of natural environment, but in terms of the human environment. As human environment, cities are infinite, according to all of these things and more. This is just a short list. These are resources managed by human structures, by political structures, by architectural structures, all sorts of things. Every city is troubled in one way or another. And every city, hopefully, is unique. Since we are the ones making cities, we can and do make them differently. We should make them differently. We can and build and manage our structures differently if need be. It is not our fate. So that leads us to the logo for Macau, the slogan. Macau, a world of difference, the difference is Macau. And many of the speakers today have been talking about diversity and encountering the other. Macau knows about that. That's part of what we do. Then there's the poster and logo slogan, feel the difference. And there's an exclamation point. It's not just to make that concept exciting, it is a command. It is the imperative. So Macau is about difference and about feeling. Both of these things are imperatives. They are things we must do in life. They are now also commodities, and they add up to an experience, the experience of our own life and the experience we have when we travel. So difference plus feeling equals experience. Experience of place is all about identity, as you were mentioning. Now, what is the identity of Macau? And what the questions we need to ask is, this is experience for whom and identity for or as what? These are big questions for us here. Now, I've been at the University of Macau for these 12 years and more. Every year I ask students to identify social problems in Macau. 5 and 10 years ago, I got a big range of social problems. Now it's boiled down in the last 3 or 4 years to these 3 problems. And you can see they're very diverse. Congestion, traffic, and traffic congestion. These are what young people are worried about now. And they're worried about it affecting their ability to see a future for themselves in Macau. Their root cause, a hint, is too many visitors. Over-tourism. In tourism studies, the concept of over-tourism is a big deal now. It's sort of the cutting edge of tourism research. It's startling that the Macau Legislative Council last week voted down a motion to discuss over-tourism. They did not even allow it to be discussed. So I recently gave a talk in Hanoi on this, and I compared Macau and Penang in Malaysia, where I lived for years and wrote a book about it. Transformations in place identity and public space through tourism and heritage preservation. These are very important issues for these 2 places. Both places have gotten good things out of this, but also some difficult things. Macau's development of both new building and heritage means that it is becoming more famous, and this is working. 10 years ago, when I like to travel everywhere, I say I'm from Macau, I had to explain. I had to say it was near Hong Kong. Now I often don't have to do that. That fame is working. It's getting out there, but fame comes at a price. Let's go quickly into the different goals of heritage versus tourism. They do have different goals. The goals of heritage are long. We can talk a whole conference about this. Historic preservation means some kind of continued continuity with a valued past, either material or social or intangible. But preservation, especially large preservation development projects and global recognition, changes materials, meanings, and social uses. So is preservation and recognition on a world scale always in the best interests of understanding and experiencing this continuity with history, or for local communities? Here are the goals of tourism. You could mention other goals, but this is the big one, I think. So fame comes at a price. Both large-scale new building and heritage protection projects can all too easily produce precarious or dubious results that especially impact local residents' senses of a home place. But only if the focus is largely on outsider experience marked by commercial development profit tourism, rather than also enhancing insider experience of places that embody local values and local identities. You know that Macau has a problem with scale and congestion. Our population is now more than 660,000, but our annual visitors are more than 20 million. Sheldon Adelson, the CEO of Sands, says he would like to see 200 million visitors and more to Macau every year. That may be physically impossible. Perhaps local identities, meanings, and uses are all too easily negatively challenged by such large-scale development and large-scale recognition on the world stage that brings with it tourism on a massive scale and an urge to overbuild, overscale, overfix things. These may be issues that UNESCO has not considered in its World Heritage Program. And I've written an article about this. Everybody goes for fame, but what are the consequences of fame? Maybe those are more important to manage carefully and correctly. So congestion is really a big thing here. And most of the congestion that people worry about come from visitors. It's largely unaddressed by the government. Now here's the example. Our two most famous sites, Senado Square and the ruins of St. Paul. Places well loved and used by locals in the past, maybe not now. If you live in Macau, would you think to go to Senado Square on a weekend to see and be seen? No, it's not your space anymore. It's a tourist space. It was always famous. They were always famous and popular. If someone was visiting your family, you would bring them there. The fire probably made it more famous than ever. It's all good. The local meaning was a place and had activities significant to local identity. It was the beating heart of Macau. But now it's always busy and commodified as a tourist experience, self-consciously promoted as heritage. Part of Macau's identity has long been that it's slower and easier going than Hong Kong. People in Macau walk slower than people in Hong Kong. I noticed that. People are still trying to do that, but maybe it's becoming harder and harder. This special identity of Macau that is tied to an intangible use of public space and quality of life is in danger of leaving. And of course, worldwide recognition doesn't necessarily help that. So yes, things can and do and must change. A lot of the change is for the better. All of that exciting, kitschy architecture in Macau is wonderful. It's thrilling. It's great to see. So this is change, yes. Is it really development in every good sense? Maybe. But is it progress? No. And here is a video I found on YouTube, posted by a foreign visitor. I can't get the sound on it, but okay, it doesn't matter. It's just noise, just noise. It's a 10-second video. And if you live in Macau, you may remember that one of these apartments on the right was for sale or rent for 5 years on end, advertised every day in the newspaper. Who would want to live there? So many in Macau feel the city is building too big, too fast, and directed too much toward outsiders. This makes architecture and heritage even more important. There's an urgent need to protect local meanings, uses, and identifications in ways sensitive to the problems of congestion and scale. World Heritage programs may contribute more to the problem than to any solution. Now here are some statements collected by our old friend Paula Marreiros. She did extensive interviews of people on the street in Macau, of every ethnic and social group, every age. And here's what some of the people had to say. Macau is now a transplanted character. It has no local context. Macau today is not a place to live anymore. I am here because it is my home. So I dream and think of the past. Going back is impossible. I feel less identified, not displaced, but less identified. There is an annihilation of the culture to accommodate international interests, an incremental destruction of the city. Ideal and reality are very hard to meet. I have money, but I am not happy. The city is confused. These new designs are too selfish, not caring about the people. Macau was a good place to retire, but it is not true anymore, not relaxed anymore. Too many people. The city was more humble, more natural. This place is not mine anymore. I stopped the car and started crying. The place was not there anymore. Very shocking statements. So the dangers here are that once previously inside-oriented arts, including the production of local senses of place and place identities for mostly internal social uses, gets transformed by tourism into outside-oriented arts for profit. This is a sentiment expressed by Nelson Grayburn, a very important theorist of ethnographic and tribal art. Tourist experience of a place is now a self-consciously produced product for sale. Local experience is often asked to take a back seat. Some older material forms of heritage may continue, but something is lost. Intangible local values easily get compromised. Now, both development and heritage preservation are political. There's a lot of social activism in China, in the mainland, whether you know about it or not. More than 10,000 protests per year. What are they protesting? Mostly about the environment. The natural environment, problems with pollution, resource depletion, land grabs, and the built environment, the world of forced evictions. These are activated by some of the negative consequences of development. So they raise questions about the meaning and consequences of development. Development of what and for whom, including so-called heritage development. Now, the Macau government is using heritage as a hedge to sort of diversify the economy because the casino bubble might burst. And this is one way they think they can do it. And maybe, well, it's certainly a good idea, but maybe it's not enough. But because the big question now for Macau is, do these negative consequences include tourism development and the heritage preservation projects that are part of it? Now, we all can see problems in Macau all the time. Some places are too full and others are too empty. Heritage programs can be responsible for both. We know the St. Lazarus district, very beautiful architecturally. It's struggling to be vibrant, but when you go there, there's still a lot of empty stuff around. Beautifully restored. It's a favorite location for tourism videos, but people don't live there. Of course, everybody lives nearby in Macau to everything else, but okay, as a neighborhood, this was emptied out. It was Some people call this the street of tourist promotion videos, and no one lives there. It's a young couple running along holding hands for the tourist commercial. When you empty out living communities, it can easily lead to new forms of decay. Things that were restored are starting to crumble again. Okay, so mainland policy is pressuring Macau to diversify its economy. Everything can't be casinos. It has been here longer than it was in Las Vegas. The biggest industries in Las Vegas are now entertainment and retail sales. Macau is still casinos. It's defied that predicted bubble burst that Las Vegas had. So the Macau SAR sees heritage development as key to economic diversification. Use culture and heritage to encourage people to stay longer and different kinds of spending in different places, spread them out a little bit from Senado Square. Use walking tours to do this, and these have been somewhat successful. I don't know, I don't have the figures on that, but tourists often beat very definite paths, and they don't often venture outside of those paths without a little encouragement. But sensitivity to issues of what is too full and what is too empty is still lacking. One possible solution is more local participation in planning processes, longer and more inclusive and better publicized public hearings about any plan. Now, this is something that someone in Malaysia said to me, and he was working many years on getting the city of Georgetown in Penang listed as UNESCO World Heritage. He said, if it is UNESCO World Heritage and now belongs to the world, does that mean it no longer belongs to us? It's probably an unanswerable question. So despite recent international concern over intangible heritage, that's a thing now, the default mode of so much heritage management and new building in Macau is toward the monumental, for the purpose of commercial consumption and use by outsiders. That was why it was so good to hear these poems and to see these artworks that are also including the very intimate of what goes on in Macau. But architecturally, monumental is the way to go. You know, you see that I have trouble walking. I'm fearful of going to the new bus station for the Macau Bridge because I heard it has vast distances to walk. Similarly, the new Taipa ferry terminal. It looks like it's built for 1 million people to walk through every day. Maybe they will. Maybe that will happen very soon. But it's very monumental of an aesthetic. Monuments create a different sense of belonging than lived places. A monument is a symbol. Yes, maybe a symbol is free-floating in the world, but does belong to the world as a symbol. It's an abstraction, like the Eiffel Tower. It doesn't just belong to Paris or France. It's all over the world. It represents Paris, but okay, it's fair game for everybody to share and enjoy. But that's different than the lived sense of people belonging to a place. The valued meanings and needs of people calling a place home are usually more modest, casual, and at smaller scales. Home is not the aesthetic in the entire city. Monumental is the general fashion. So questions that often go unasked include, why is the ideal of development, even heritage development, so powerful in itself and so often unquestioned about consequences? Just develop, just make money. Monuments are hard to live in. Is UNESCO in its program monumentalizing the places that people called home, that were for them, created by them, to which they feel they belong and which belong to them? Can such recognition work to actually deny people continuity with their own past? Now, here are some of the questions. Maybe we can continue to discuss them in the questions and answers. Is monumentality of urban form, especially here, an inevitable result? Does this mean loss of identity and difference? More and more the same. We saw in the film from Jacques Tati. It could be Paris, it could be Chicago. A diminished quality of local life, money, but maybe not happiness, smaller meanings for everything, constrained imaginations. Are the new meanings counterproductive to the goals of heritage, which is to see something new all the time in history and the past? And the imaginations we need to create possible new futures may be endangered by this kind of development. So let's work to make sure Macau remains infinite and not just small.
So thank you for three of you, different concepts, 3 different ideas, complementary or not, we can discuss. And Alexandre told us about the city, about architecture, how can it be also inspiring and also a scenario, and also in a way explain us something. Salles Marques spoke about the city, about the Delta River, about the difference that Macau can play in this situation. And then Peter asked about the tourism, the invasion of tourists, and about the role also that heritage can play in this situation, and what is the meaning of this, and what else do we need to, what steps can we drive to go further. So I'd like to hear from you some questions. Okay, we have one here. Thank you.
Well, we are very worried about the Great Bay Area, but what about Macau extension, 80 square kilometers? Are the planning going on? That's the first question. The second question is, what is the impact of Hankin Island development into the Macau life? The third one is transportation in Macau. Are we considering alternatives like rolling carpets, walkolators? Because now we have the buses going around like you know, non-stopping carpet, put it that way. When I arrived in Macau 50 years ago, it was bicycles and half a dozen cars, and people were happy and relaxed. Now we're speeding up, and now we talked about Saint-Malo, the main street without cars, because people suffocate, in fact, in the Liao Square. The moment we open for pedestrians the old bazaar, then the spread will go into business in the whole area. Then are we considering Macau planning of the center, Saint-Malo area, Main Street on both sides? What kind of buildings do we want to have it there? Are we going to keep the heritage there? Are we going to fit the holes that now are car parks or huts with the buildings that we can redo the reurbanization? Are we going to do the Yaohon into transplanting the people into one area for 1 year and rebuild it into housing? We have been working about that for 10 years or 20 years, the old places. What are really the solutions? Thank you.
Aren't you glad you're no longer mayor? You would have to answer all those.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, indeed, I'm very glad. As I said, I don't have any responsibility. I can just say whatever I want, and with no consequences. Well, the thing is, like, first of all, the first question was about. Sorry, I forgot. What was your first question? I know that you asked about Hankin Island, right? But then there was the first question.
Well, can I have a microphone? Well, I think we have the Bay Area, the Great Bay Area, but are we considering the close-by solutions of Hankin Island and the 80 square kilometers? Are we having an education town? Are we going to carry on having the schools in the middle of town without proper playgrounds?
Okay, well, the first question is about the maritime area, right? The 85 square kilometer of maritime area. As far as I know, there's no additional plans that was presented to the public. There have been a couple of discussions about what that could be. I myself was involved also in some organizing seminars in regard to the maybe, let's say, the usage of this 85 square kilometers, and as well as the concerns that everybody has in regard to environment, for instance, and how we could make actually much more of our coastline, the connection, the relationship between the city and the sea. I think that for me is one of the most important things. I have since very, very long time advocate that Macau should have a much better relationship with our waterfront, because this is completely most of the times it's not used for anything, and when it is used, it's not for the good, for the better reason. So I think there's a lot of things that we could do. I mean, there's so many cities. Well, there's a discussion about river cities. Marie is well involved with that as well. So I think there should be, and there could be a lot more things to do to improve the connection between the city and the river. But for the betterment of the people, I mean, to make our life much more interesting and rich, and the quality of life better. So that is maybe the answer to the first question. The second question about Hengqin Island. Well, Hengqin Island has been promised to be many, many things. But up to now, I don't think that anyone here, maybe if any one of you have a different opinion, you can raise your hand and even throw me out of the stage. But I don't see any impact yet in our quality of life or in something different that we do, because of course there are many things happening there, some construction and so on, but besides the university, which is an enclave that is not counted in my definition as Hengqin Island, is part of Macau, right? Geographically it's there, but it's part of Macau. So besides that, there's nothing happening at Hengqin Island that improve our quality of life. So that is my assessment. And in regard to the third question, yes, what is the solution, the traffic solution for Macau? I think that is a $1 billion question. And of course, I think whatever we do, and I do agree with Peter, we should not think of that in a monumental scale. Let's make it human, right? Let's try to solve problems step by step, instead of trying to build up some unrealistic big plans that then nobody really care to follow. I think we should manage things in a certain scale which is adequate to Macau. It's not the 1 square kilometer that I heard many years ago, some planners that come from somewhere else say, oh, yes, we should do, use this unit, 1 square kilometer, to be the kind of a basic unit for planning in Macau. 1 square kilometer is a lot for Macau. We cannot just, do things in such a big scale. We should do things, trim them down to the scale that is the scale of the city. That is my general answer to this. Maybe some of you have some better idea.
Okay, some other question. I don't know if you also want to answer something related to this question, or maybe we can drive.
Well, just briefly, it seems that one way out of the current climate change crisis is multiple projects, attacking the problem from multiple directions. So I'm thinking development, yes, but multiple small-scale developments that are really from the bottom up is the way to solve the bigger problem incrementally, and by adding small things together.
Yeah, a small infinity. Macau is like this. If you think this puzzle in several parts and try to solve and then complement all together. Some other question from the audience? Yes.
Who is dealing with planning mid-term and long-term for Macau? Who is doing it?
We are talking about the city. We are not here in terms of urban planning departments or what else. We are just people thinking about the city. Sometimes we think that we should also be included, of course. Somehow Macau is, now actually we have a master plan being planned in Hong Kong. By whom, we don't know. They even didn't listen to us. So, but anyway, we have our ideas, and we also, thanks to the organizers of this, to bring architecture to the stage, because we have ideas, all of you also have, so we can share. In a way, we can talk about this and can promote quality. That's what we want, promote quality in the city. Some other question from the audience? So maybe me, I put a question. I'd like to put it to Alexandre. Because talking about Henri Lefebvre, he has different categories of space. Okay, the space produced by the architects, the space lived by the people living there, and also the space as a political issue to serve certain purposes. In Macau, we have the casinos, and what do you think about this idea of having the casinos as an idea to serve certain purposes? So they are made like Las Vegas because they want to induce people to play. On the other side, we have the government. They have the issue of the social housing, and they are promoting the social housing. This is probably also another hegemonic idea. And we have also the heritage on the other side, and we have the people, the neighborhood, people living there. They want to keep some of their original courtyards. We have also UNESCO. And we have this city, a port city in the past, trying to preserve the views like a maritime city. So we have all these different angles, a small infinite. But how can be this all articulated in Macau?
I think we have this very fragile condition because Macau somehow it just drove into this direction that is dependent of the gambling. So I think this is the reality, and me as architects, we have to work with real problems, and sometimes to find the right question, it's not that easy, but the story tells us, and we have ideas that are translated into cities, because if we are looking back to a very recent story after World War II, we can see that a lot of cities in Europe were devastated, and somehow we as humans, as an architects, we found some very nice ways to solve the cities, our Lisbon, for example, after the earthquake. So I think Macau also can look to some models, some case studies that other architects did, of course, dealing with different problems. But the casino, it's a reality that we have to face it. I don't think we don't have too many tools to move this economy forward. And of course, let me tell you this: I love Macau, old Macau. I have memories of without casinos and so on. But I think we have to somehow. The city belongs to everybody, and not only the architects, because sometimes architects, we speak the same language. Sometimes we speak our own language, and sometimes it's hard to make people know what we are trying to solve. And I think this could be a way that we can find everybody in the same space, in the same kind of a language. That is the reality, the city, the urban planning, and the architecture. It belongs to people, to life. So I think I think we have to plan. This is very important. And this gentleman was asking about who is going to do it long, short term. This is not a long and short and medium term. It's planning. That's why we call it planning. It's always learning from our past and our mistakes, make decisions in the present, and planning the future. So it's always a ongoing process, working in progress, because cities are living organisms. So today we are facing the casinos problems, tomorrow will be another ones. But I remember Paulo Mendes de Rocha, which is a very famous architect. He used to say, architecture only exists to minimize the probability of things going wrong, which in Portuguese something like no seu modo in the Brazilian way was com palavrão, eu espero que não... Mas ele dizia qualquer coisa assim, a arquitetura existe para diminuir a probabilidade da coisa dar cocó. Portanto, so I think we have to plan this together. But casinos are reality, and yes, I mean that's our problem. Probably we can discuss some ideas. I have my own, and Maria José, but.
I just wanted to add to what you said about the artist Gordon Matta-Clark, who in New York made cutouts out of those old buildings. His art was also directly political. He would search out who owned property in tiny little places between buildings and high-rises. Sometimes it would be just 1 square foot, 1 square meter, and he would either claim ownership on it or buy it from who he found was the owner, and then wait to see what happened. Who would fight over that 1 square foot because they wanted to do some big development project? So he could reveal the whole political structure of what goes on.
Also, sorry, Peter. Also, the same happened years a little bit after, but with Rachel Whitebread in a London or Londoner or British contest. But exactly the same that Gordon Matta-Clark did it. And thank you for adding that.
So I continue asking. Somebody wants to raise some question. So I think after this we had here nice discussion. I think it's a good hand for the script road, and I want to invite Ricardo. Please come here, because I think we are almost done, and we want to thank you, and we are happy with this end.
Thank you so much for this panel. Someone was asking me if this is the closing ceremony of the festival. There is no such thing. We don't do a formal ceremony. And also because we are going still to have another representation of the theater play, Drug, by the Rolling Puppets Alternative Theater, just next door. And also because we are going to have a concert at LMA at 10:30. If you don't know where is the place, please ask our team. It's going to be a concert with the Taiwanese band called Wednesday and Bat to the Bone. But this was in fact the last panel, and I thank you very much for your presence and for your brilliant participation. It was actually very appropriate to finish this festival with a local discussion with local people about local problems and about our city. Sorry for bringing more visitors to Macau, Peter. I know we added a little bit to the problem. And thank you so much for all the time thanking the festival for our contribution. We do appreciate a lot, but I think it's time now to thank on our behalf to everyone that has joined the festival, all the team, all our guests, and everyone that work in the festival. And now it's time to call Alice, who did a brilliant job. Newcomer like Carlos to the festival direction, and Alice has something to announce.
Yes, we will announce for the winner of this year's festival's short story competition, and his name is Deng Gailai. It's a local Chinese writer. He has presented his short story called The Lonely City. And we will later include all the participants, their writings into a new edition of the festival next year. Thank you.
Well, it was an amazing week for us, so we are really grateful to everybody that helped us to put this festival up and together, and for everybody, our team, the translators, the producers, the drivers, everybody that made this possible, the artists, the local people, the local writers, the local artists, which for us finally we are making this to give to the Macau population, so it's our first target anyhow. And so now it's time to say goodbye. See you very soon. See you next year, at least at the concert tonight, and count on the festival next year. Thank you very much, all of you.
I would like to dedicate a poem because this is a poetry theme festival, and this concerns all of us, and especially for the good work that they have done. I read this poem from Kurt Vonnegut, and it's about pollution and earth. And the poem is The Crucified Planet Earth. The crucified planet Earth, should it find a voice and a sense of irony, might now well say at our abuse of it, "Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do." The irony would be that we know what we are doing. When the last living thing has died on the account of us, how poetical it would be if Earth could say, in a voice floating up, perhaps from the floor of the Grand Canyon, "It is done. People did not like it here."
So, see you next year.
We like it here.